That's the question that occupies my thoughts at night, because at some point, whether it's after school, after securing a job, after becoming a parent, or just after settling in, we pause something crucial. We cease to nourish the one aspect of ourselves that never stops needing it, the mind. And when we stop learning, something subtle yet serious begins to occur. We don't feel it immediately. It's not like breaking a bone or forgetting an anniversary. It doesn't announce itself. But gradually, over time, we start to feel dull, numb, bored, perhaps restless, and we begin seeking distractions, anything to fill the void left by our own curiosity. That's because the absence of learning isn't just stillness, it's decay. See, learning isn't about information. It's not about stuffing your brain with facts or quotes or trivia. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's not even about being better than someone else. Real learning, the kind I'm referring to, is about staying alert, staying alive inside, staying open to what's possible. We were designed to grow. That's ingrained in us. From the moment we're born, our instinct is to reach. Babies learn to speak by watching mouths move. They learn to walk by falling repeatedly, not because someone told them to, but because they must, because there is something inside them that says, I want to see more, I want to do more, I want to understand what this world is. That instinct doesn't vanish, but life has a way of quieting it. Somewhere along the way, we begin to confuse learning with schooling. We start to believe that once we graduate, we're done, that once we get trained, we're finished. But education, real education, was never supposed to be an event. It's supposed to be a way of being. Think about it. The world is changing every single day. New technologies, new problems, new opportunities, new people. So why would we ever believe that the same version of ourselves who understood yesterday is automatically ready for tomorrow? Learning is how we keep up. It's how we stay engaged. It's how we remain relevant, not just professionally, but personally. It's how we connect to the moment we're living in. But more importantly, more deeply, learning is how we stay inspired. It's how we reignite our sense of purpose, that fire we had when we started something new, that hunger to know more. That wasn't just ambition, that was our humanity speaking, and it still is. I've met people in their 70s and 80s who are more alive than people in their 20s, not because they're richer or healthier or luckier, but because they never stopped being students. They read, they asked questions, they sought out conversations that challenged them. They didn't try to prove they were right, they tried to understand more deeply. They lived with open eyes and open hearts. So contrast that with someone who stopped learning at 25. They may be busy, they may be productive, but if you look closely, there's no spark. They're running routines, they're repeating yesterday, they're surviving, not evolving. And it shows. The truth is, if you're not learning something new every day, you're becoming a little less prepared for the world you'll wake up to tomorrow. That sounds dramatic, but it's real, because every day you go without learning, you're reinforcing the idea that you already know enough, and that's a dangerous place to be, especially in a world that doesn't stop moving. Now, here's what's beautiful about all of this. You don't have to go back to school, you don't need a classroom or a syllabus or a degree, you don't even need a plan. All you need is a question. That's how it starts. Why do people act the way they do? What's behind that technology I use every day? How does that system work? What does that person see that I don't? What could I be wrong about? A single question, honestly asked, can open a world. It can change how you see your job, your relationships, your role in the world. And it does something else too. It reawakens your brain. It reminds you that there's more out there, more to discover, more to understand, more to become. And when that switch flips, you start noticing things again. You hear something on a podcast, and suddenly it's fascinating.
You read a line in a book, and it lingers with you all day. You meet someone who knows something you don't. Instead of feeling intimidated, you feel lucky because you're alive again, because your mind is awake. And I want to be clear, this isn't just about personal development. This is survival. If you want to lead, you must learn. If you want to contribute, you must learn. If you want to matter, really matter in your work, your family, your community, you must learn. We can't expect to make a difference with yesterday's thinking. We can't hope to build something meaningful if we're not willing to expand our understanding. And we can't inspire others if we're not willing to be inspired ourselves. And that's the real reason to educate yourself daily. Not to get ahead, but to stay human. Not to win, but to grow. Not because someone expects it of you, but because something inside you knows this is what you were made to do. So pick up a book, start a journal, watch a documentary, ask someone a question you've never asked. Try something that scares you. Learn something, anything that reminds you that you're not finished, because you're not. You're still becoming, you're still building, you're still growing into the person the world needs you to be. And the only way to get there is to keep learning every single day. There's something dangerous that happens to us when things are fine. We stop moving. Not because we're lazy, not because we've lost interest, but because fine is comfortable. It's predictable. It doesn't challenge us. And so slowly, without realizing it, we stop reaching for more. We stop asking the hard questions. We stop risking, creating, stretching, and we start to coast. That's stagnation. And here's the scary part. You often don't even realize it's happening until it's already taken hold. It doesn't come with alarms, it doesn't make headlines, it doesn't show up like a crisis. It just quietly seeps into our habits, our conversations, our thoughts. One skipped opportunity here, one ignored curiosity there, one more day where we show up and go through the motions without asking, is this still making me grow? Stagnation is not the absence of activity, it's the absence of evolution. You can be busy and stagnant. You can have a packed calendar, endless emails, and still be standing still where it matters most, in your potential. That's because doing more is not the same as becoming more. And our world confuses those two constantly. We celebrate hustle, we glorify efficiency, we reward productivity. But none of those things matter if they're not connected to progress. Not just progress in results, but progress in character, wisdom, and depth. The truth is, every single person has untapped potential. Every single one of us has a deeper level of insight, a higher level of contribution, a fuller expression of who we can be. But potential doesn't unlock itself. It's not automatic. It doesn't care how smart you are or how talented you've been. It only responds to movement. And when we stop growing, our potential stops unfolding. It starts to harden, to quiet down, to retreat into the background, until one day we don't feel the hunger anymore. We don't feel the pull. We don't feel the urgency to get better. We've convinced ourselves that who we are now is all we'll ever be. That's the danger, because no one wakes up and says, "Today I want to waste my life." But many people, too many, wake up and live the same year over and over again, calling it a career or a relationship or a life. They stay in the same role not because it challenges them, but because it's safe. They keep the same mindset not because it's serving them, but because it's familiar. They surround themselves with the same opinions, the same routines, the same conversations. Not because they're inspiring, but because they're comfortable. And over time, they forget what it felt like to strive for something more. The thing is, potential doesn't disappear. It just waits. It waits for you to say yes. It waits for you to stretch. It waits for you to step into discomfort. Not because discomfort is pleasant, but because it's productive. Growth never happens in the comfort zone. It's not a cliche, it's reality. Every meaningful breakthrough you've ever had came from a moment of resistance. A challenge you didn't want, change you didn't expect, a truth you didn't want to face. And yet, on the other side of that, that's where you leveled up. So if you want to keep unlocking your potential, you have to keep moving toward resistance. You have to seek out what makes you uncomfortable. You have to ask questions that don't have easy answers.
You have to put yourself in rooms where you're not the most experienced person. You have to be humble enough to say, "I don't know, but I want to learn." That kind of posture, one of growth, not perfection, is the antidote to stagnation.
The people who keep evolving aren't always the smartest. They're not always the most skilled, but they're the ones who stay open, who never assume they've arrived, who stay committed to becoming better. Even when no one is watching, that's what makes them powerful. Because when you commit to growth, you become adaptable, and adaptability is the superpower of this era. The world is changing too fast to rely on what worked yesterday. Your career, your relationships, your purpose, they all require you to evolve. But you can't evolve if you're stuck in fine. You can't break through if you're afraid to break routine. You can't lead others if you've stopped leading yourself. We have to be honest here. Potential doesn't mean anything if you're not using it. It's like having a seed and never planting it. You can talk about what could be, you can imagine all the success, the impact, the fulfillment, but unless you take action, unless you move, it will remain locked inside. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that we fail, but that we settle, that we live at half strength, that we play small, that we convince ourselves this is just the way things are, when deep down we know we were made for more. So what do? You start small, but you start now. You choose one thing today that stretches you, one new idea, one new spill, one uncomfortable conversation. You do something that your yesterday self wouldn't have done. And you do it not to prove anything to the world, but to prove to yourself that you're still growing. Because growth is not a destination, it's a choice, a posture, a lifestyle. And the people who live with that mindset, they don't stagnate, they don't burn out from boredom, they don't coast on autopilot. They may struggle, yes, they may fail often, but they are always evolving. And that evolution keeps them alive, not just existing, but truly alive. That's the goal. Not perfection, not success, not applause, just growth. Because when you grow, you create, you can, you lead, you serve, you matter. And when you stop growing, you stop all of that. So don't settle for fine. Don't settle for stability. Don't settle for yesterday's potential. Move, stretch, reach, learn. Because your potential is not a fixed thing. It's a living thing, and it's waiting on you to wake it up. There's a myth we've been sold, one that quietly holds too many people back from reaching their potential. It's the idea that curiosity is some special gift you're either born with or you're not, that it belongs only to the naturally inquisitive, the so-called intellectuals, the inventors, the dreamers, that curiosity is a talent. It's not. Curiosity is a habit, and like any habit, it's something you can build or ignore. It's something you can choose every single day. And like any habit, it will either become part of who you are, or it will fade into the background of who you used to be. We tend to admire curious people, those who seem endlessly fascinated, who ask powerful questions, who explore, who dig deeper. We look at them and think, wow, they must be wired differently. But that's not the truth. The truth is, they've just made a decision and kept making it. They've decided that not knowing is an invitation, not an embarrassment. They've decided that asking why is a strength, not a weakness. They've decided that growth matters more than looking smart. That's what separates the curious from the complacent. Not IQ, not degrees, not talent, just a simple repeated choice to stay open. And that choice can be yours too. Because let's be honest, we're all born curious. Every single one of us. Just watch a toddler for 10 minutes. Everything is new. Everything is worth touching, tasting, breaking, asking about. The world is a laboratory. Their favorite word? Why? Not once, but over and over again. Not because they want to challenge authority, but because they genuinely want to understand. And then something happens. Somewhere along the way, we start to trade curiosity for certainty. We stop asking why and start pretending we already know. We're rewarded for answers, not questions, for being right, not being thoughtful. And slowly, that natural drive to explore the unknown gets replaced by a fear of looking foolish. But here's the irony. The people who truly grow, who truly lead, who truly make a difference, they're not afraid of looking foolish. They're afraid of standing still. They don't let ego block their evolution. They'd rather be wrong and learn than be right and stuck, because they understand that curiosity is the foundation of wisdom. Curiosity isn't just about being interested in fun facts or learning for learning's sake.
Curiosity isn't just about being interested in fun facts or learning for learning's sake. It's about the kind of mindset that keeps you moving forward when others get stuck. It's about asking better questions that lead to better outcomes. It's about seeing past the obvious. And most of all, it's about staying humble. You can't be curious and arrogant at the same time. One cancels out the other. Arrogance says, I already know. Curiosity says, what am I missing? Arrogance defends. Curiosity explores. Arrogance reacts. Curiosity listens. And here's what's beautiful. The most successful people, the real kind of success, not just wealth or status, but meaning, contribution, fulfillment, those people never stopped asking questions. They didn't build their success on what they already knew. They built it by staying open to what they didn't. They built it by making curiosity a daily habit. They don't just read books, they dig into them. They don't just meet people, they ask them thoughtful questions. They don't just hear opinions, they seek to understand them. They don't just observe problems, they investigate solutions. Curiosity to them is like oxygen. It keeps everything else alive. And it can be that way for you too. You don't have to change your personality to be curious. You don't have to be loud or extroverted or academic. All you have to do is notice. Notice what feels unexplained. Notice what doesn't quite make sense. Notice when someone else knows something you don't, and instead of feeling insecure, feel intrigued. Ask yourself, when was the last time I learned something that truly surprised me? When was the last time I changed my mind about something important? When was the last time I asked a question I didn't already know the answer to? If you're struggling to answer those, don't worry. That's not failure, that's awareness. And awareness is the first step toward change. Because building the habit of curiosity doesn't mean turning your whole life upside down. It means choosing to lean in just a little more often, asking one more why, reading one more chapter, listening a little longer before replying, being just a bit more willing to admit, I don't know yet. And over time, those small choices compound. They sharpen your thinking, they deepen your empathy, they unlock ideas you didn't even know were possible. They turn your world into something bigger, brighter, and more dynamic, but only if you stay consistent. Because the opposite of curiosity isn't ignorance, it's certainty. It's when we decide we've seen enough, heard enough, learned enough. It's when we stop searching. And the moment we stop searching, we start shrinking. Not physically, but intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. We become smaller versions of ourselves. That's not who we're meant to be. You are not here to recycle yesterday. You are not here to repeat old answers. You are here to ask something new, to see something deeper, to connect more meaningfully. That begins with curiosity, that continues with practice, and that grows into a life of contribution. So no, curiosity is not a talent, it's a decision. It's a muscle you train, a value you honor, a lens you choose to look through. And when you do, the world opens, people open, possibilities open. All it takes is a question, so ask it every single day. There's something most people underestimate, not because it's complicated, but because it's quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't arrive all at once. It doesn't feel urgent. And that's exactly why people ignore it. It's the power of consistency. And nowhere is that more powerful than in how we educate ourselves. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. Most people think growth is about breakthroughs. They imagine change like a light switch. One day you don't know, and the next day you do. One day you're stuck, and the next day you're successful. But real growth doesn't work that way. It's not sudden.
It's subtle, it's slow, it's small, it's compound interest. Think about it. You don't save for retirement in one paycheck. You don't build trust in one conversation. You don't become fit from one workout. You show up again and again, even when the results aren't obvious. And over time, those small investments accumulate into something powerful. Learning works the same way. The most intelligent, thoughtful, insightful people didn't get there overnight. They didn't wake up inspired. They built a rhythm. They treated their mind like something worth investing in every single day. That's what daily education is. It's an investment not in information, but in identity, not in knowledge, but in wisdom. You're not just filling your head, you're shaping your future. You're building the capacity to think clearly, to see deeply, to make decisions that align with who you want to be. And like with money, most people miss this because they're looking for fast returns. They want immediate results.
Now, they want to feel smarter by the end of a YouTube video or more enlightened after a single book. But the truth is, that's not how it works. You don't become wise by consuming more. You become wise by engaging more consistently. A little every day beats a lot once in a while. That's not just a philosophy, that's how the brain works. Neural pathways get reinforced through repetition. The more frequently you revisit an idea, the more naturally it becomes part of how you think. That's not magic, that's science. But let's go deeper. Daily education isn't just about absorbing facts, it's about expanding perspective. When you read one page a day, watch one insightful video, reflect on one meaningful question, you're not just learning, you're reminding yourself that your growth matters. You're telling your brain, I'm not done becoming yet. And that's a powerful message to send to yourself. Because the world doesn't always tell you to keep growing. It tells you to perform, to produce, to look like you have it all figured out. But when you commit to daily education, you flip the script. You stop pretending and you start pursuing. You stop trying to impress others and you start trying to improve yourself. That's when real change begins. Because here's what happens when you invest in learning every day. Your thinking sharpens, your language gets clearer, your judgment improves, your creativity expands. You start connecting dots you didn't see before. You start seeing patterns and chaos and solutions and problems. You start becoming a better version of yourself, not in one leap, but in thousands of steps. And none of that is visible right away. That's why people give up too soon. They say, I've been reading, I've been listening, I've been reflecting, but nothing's happening. And what they don't realize is that something is happening. The roots are growing before the tree appears. The changes are invisible before they're undeniable. That's how compounding works, but only if you stay with it. Most people stop right before it gets interesting, right before the knowledge clicks, right before the mindset shifts, right before the growth becomes obvious to others, because they mistake slow progress for no progress. They don't realize that the biggest returns come to those who wait the longest. So what does it look like to educate yourself daily? It's not glamorous, it's not cinematic, it's simple. It's choosing a book instead of mindless scrolling. It's watching a thoughtful talk instead of another highlight reel. It's journaling at the end of a chaotic day to extract one insight. It's asking a better question at dinner. It's leaning into discomfort when a new idea challenges you. And most of all, it's doing it again tomorrow. The trick is not to go big. The trick is to not stop. You don't need to read a book a week. You just need to read today. You don't need a perfect system. You just need a meaningful practice. One that reminds you every single day that your mind is your most valuable asset and you're responsible for how you shape it. It's easy to forget this, especially when things get busy, when life demands your attention. Learning is often the first thing to go. But here's the truth. The more chaotic life gets, the more important your daily learning becomes. Because that's your anchor, that's your compass. That's how you stay centered in a world that's moving too fast. When you commit to daily education, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop getting swept up in every trend and start building your own lens.
You don't just follow ideas, you develop your own. And that's when you become valuable not just to your team, not just to your career, but to the people who rely on you to lead, to listen, to care. It's not about becoming a genius, it's about becoming grounded. So don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for clarity. Don't wait for motivation. Just start today, right now. Read one page. Ask one deeper question. Reflect on one lesson from your day. And then repeat. Because the value of what you learned today might not be visible today, but give it time and it will multiply. Not just in what you know, but in who you become. That's the quiet power of compounding. And the only thing you have to do is keep going. There's a simple truth we often forget in the rush of daily life. Your mind is always listening, always learning, always absorbing. And just like a garden, it responds to whatever you feed it, whether or not you're doing it intentionally. The challenge is most people are feeding their minds by accident. They don't think about the content they consume, the people they surround themselves with, or the stories they tell themselves. And over time, those small, seemingly harmless inputs shape the way they think, how they see the world, and what they believe is possible. The mind is not neutral ground. It doesn't remain untouched by what enters it. It either grows weeds or it grows fruit, but it does not stay empty. And that's the core idea here. Whatever you feed your mind grows. If you constantly take in fear, fear will grow. If you flood it with comparison, envy will take root. If you surround yourself with negativity, cynicism will blossom. But if you choose to nourish it with learning, encouragement, questions, and purpose, then resilience grows, confidence grows, compassion grows, vision grows. The question isn't if your mind is being shaped, the question is by what? We live in a world that makes this harder than ever to manage. We are bombarded with noise, notifications, headlines, opinions, judgments, social media algorithms, built not to inform us but to hold our attention at all costs. And that attention, if we're not careful, gets spent on things that don't feed us, they drain us. The real danger isn't just the content itself, it's that we stop noticing, we stop filtering, we let anything in. And over time, we get used to thinking in ways that don't serve us. That's why intentionality is everything. Think about a gardener. They don't just throw seeds into the dirt and walk away. They prepare the soil, they protect the seedlings, they prune, they water, they pay attention, because they understand something essential. Growth is not random. The same goes for your mind. What you read, what you watch, what you listen to, who you listen to, how you speak to yourself, what you dwell on. These aren't small things. These are the seeds you plant every single day. But over time, they become habits, beliefs, mindsets, identity. If you want to grow something meaningful in your life, purpose, leadership, empathy, courage, then you have to plant it. You have to feed it. You have to make it a priority. You don't need to be perfect at it. You just need to be deliberate. It starts with simple shifts. Replace an hour of scrolling with 10 minutes of reading something that makes you think. Replace gossip with curiosity. Replace criticism with a question. Replace passive consumption with active learning. Those shifts may seem small, but they aren't. They're how you take control of what's growing in your mind. They're how you protect your potential from being overtaken by weeds you didn't mean to plant. Because that's the truth. The weeds don't need permission. They don't ask before they show up. They just need you to stop paying attention. But when you do pay attention, when you choose the inputs on purpose, you'll be amazed at how fast things change. Ideas start connecting, energy returns, problems start to look like puzzles instead of roadblocks. You begin to carry yourself differently. You speak more clearly. You listen more deeply. You start to think like the kind of person who doesn't just react to life, but leads it. That doesn't come from a weekend seminar. It doesn't come from one inspiring moment. It comes from the ongoing decision to tend to your mind like something precious, because it is. And when you do, the people around you benefit too, because your mindset isn't just your own. It's something you carry into every room, into every meeting, every conversation, every relationship. When your mind is full of fear, you lead with fear. When your mind is full of noise, you speak from chaos. But when your mind is full of growth, curiosity, and clarity, you lead with those things, and people feel it. That's how real influence works. Not from title, not from charisma, but from how you think. And you get to shape that. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. Maybe you've been feeding your mind things that don't serve you. Maybe you've been stuck in loops of self-doubt, comparison, frustration. That's okay. You can start again. You can start today. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to plant something new. Pick up a book that stretches you. Listen to a conversation that challenges your perspective. Take 5 minutes to reflect on what you're grateful for. Speak to yourself with the same kindness you'd give a close friend. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. Because left untended, your mind will default to survival. It will play it safe. It will get stuck in old patterns. But when you choose what you feed it consistently, it will thrive. That's not motivational fluff. That's how human beings are wired. And that means you have a choice. You can let the world feed your mind, or you can choose to feed it yourself. And the beautiful part, it adds up. It compounds. You won't always see the growth right away, but one day someone will ask how you became so grounded, so insightful, so clear. And you'll realize it wasn't one big thing. It was the seeds you planted when no one was watching. The choices you made when it would have been easier to do nothing. That's the power of intentional education, not just for success. So tend your mind like a garden. Water it daily. Protect it from what doesn't belong. And feed it with what you want to grow. Because whatever you feed, your mind grows. And what grows defines your life.